Hey everyone. So I wanted to do a video on how to blend assets into each other. This typically is something that happens with ground, rubble, curbs, streets, that kind of stuff. And you can see we've just got this rock here, and this will be using Megascans assets. The same setup can be used on your own assets, of course. And if you have something that you want me to look at as far as how to use this technique on your own assets, just let me know. But this is just a Megascans rock, and you can see we get this really crappy contact point right here, which sometimes lighting will kind of hide it, but this is definitely a technique that there's no overhead to it. It's really easy to set up, um, and it takes about 5 minutes. And once you do it once, you'll see how easy it is. So the first thing we need to do is find the material for this guy. We can go over here under materials, and you see we've got this uh, 3D instance of this material. So let's go ahead and find it. It's right here in this folder. So we'll double click on this. And this is usually where people stop with Megascans because they're like, what do I do with all of this stuff? I can't add things. And this is because this is the material instance. So we have to find the master material for this object. So that's really easy to do. We just got into the parent, and you can see we have an MS default material. So we're going to go into that. And this is the second place most people stop. They look at this and they can't understand because it doesn't look like a typical material setup, right? And that's because these are using material functions. And that's what this is. If you see a blue box in your editor, it'll be a material function. This is a material function as well as this. Um, this part right here, I'm going to cover in a separate video, but this is a macro texture variation setup, and this will basically cause your textures to not tile. And this is super easy to do, but I wanted to put it in a separate video just in case you guys knew how to do this already and you're not interested. So to edit this master material and get this blending that we're talking about, we're going to have to go into this function. So if I just double click, you can see now we have that typical thing that you guys are used to. It's called make material attributes, but it's very similar to the normal material setup. And what we want is this pixel depth offset. And I'm just going to go over here and create a little function for us to use. So the first thing we need is a temporal dither. And dithering is kind of what this process is. It's going to dither between the background of your object and the object itself to create this transition. The next thing we need is a scalar parameter, and that's super easy to do. Just hold down S and click. We'll get the scalar parameter, and we'll call this blend. And we need to get these together, so we're just going to multiply them. You can type multiply or just M on your keyboard. And we're going to dump this dither into A and the blend into B. And this parameter we'll see in our instance will be exposed, and then we can dial it in. So all of this is just going to get plugged in to this pixel depth offset. And at first we're not going to see anything because we're editing this master material. So I'm just going to apply this, and we're going to save it. I'm going to save this. This will take a second because it's actually saving, recompiling the shader. And then we're going to go into our material here, and you're going to see we now have this global scalar parameter value called blend. So I'm just going to move this over. You're going to checkbox this, and now I'm just going to dial this in. I'm trying to do this on one screen so you can see what happens. And this is a very subtle effect, but it really, really helps, especially if you have a lot of these things. So as I start to crank this up, you're going to see it's blending into the ground. Like I said, it's really subtle, but you can see without and with. It's going to darken the material a little bit, and that just has to do with there's a cast shadow, not a bug, but it's a cast shadow thing that we have to deal with. But honestly, with this kind of stuff, it doesn't really matter because as we start to kind of move these things around and blend them. Now, if I go over here, like so. And then we could really crank this up if we want to really get the ground influenced in there, like so. And it's that simple. But you can see it creates a really big difference in the contacts between the ground. And if you want to kind of combat this, the darkness of this, you can do it in the normal Megascans material properties, which are in here. Another kind of trick that I typically do with this is I'll do an albedo tint. So if you just checkbox this, click on your color, and then click your eyedropper, I'm just going to go and click that. And that's just giving me that color of the ground. And now I'm just going to lighten it up a bit. And you can dial this in to your heart's content. And now we can see we go from that to that, and they kind of blend into its environment much better. So really quick technique. I definitely recommend using this, especially if you're going to have like lots of rocks scattered around. This will really help blend your objects into your materials. And that's it for this. I'll go ahead. I'll be posting a couple more demos on how to tint your own objects and set up some color variations and set up your own instances. But I wanted to cover this first because I know a lot of you are using Megascans. And if you're wondering how to get that blend, this is how. And you can also get kind of crazy with this setup. A lot of the more advanced guys, they will go in here and they'll set what's called linear interpolation, and they'll actually use a mask for the dither. But that's a little bit more complicated, and this should serve you pretty well. All right, thanks everyone. Talk to you soon.